Okay, again, here's the source. Archaeologists in the Library of Congress YouTube in Florida talking about the 1600s, okay? This is going to speak about how the English or the Spanish to English translations of any of the stories have been purposely misinterpreted right here.
And tales of people like this individual, whose real name was actually Darby Glavin. He's Irish. And the Spanish had no patience with Darby as a name, so they just called him David Glavid. And David Glavid has a fascinating story. We know about him in the English historiography that he was one of the Roanoke settlers, that Francis Drake took him back to England. He was sent back and somehow was captured by the Spanish and was sentenced to a life in the galleys. That's the English version of the narrative. The Spanish story is completely different. David Glavid ends up living in St. Augustine. He testifies that he was a fisherman off the coast of Ireland, and the English kidnapped him. Took him to Roanoke against his will, stole his boat, and he ended up at Roanoke, went back to England with Drake, and then Queen Elizabeth II sent him back. When he arrived in Puerto Rico, he ran away. And he later joined the Spanish, lived in St. Augustine, and he was a merchant and a soldier in St. Augustine. He was the guy you would go to get stuff. If you wanted textiles from Asia, you wanted David Glavid was the merchant who could acquire those goods.
Now, is this guy just talking out the side of his ass? Or did he actually provide a source? And look at the source. It is a handwritten letter preserved for over 400 years, okay? So let's think about this. A primary source is a first-hand account, an original document, a recording, artifact, or other evidence created by a witness or participant in an event or time period, offering direct or first-hand evidence and that event, object, or person. Okay? So why am I harping on this? Because you got dumbasses that are on Twitter and X and all over, as well as on TikTok, and they'll go back and forth with you about their sources, right? And he'll just type this, and I had to go off and say, sir, you can't just type it and say it happened. That doesn't prove it. It doesn't prove it. You need evidence, and you need firsthand or as far back towards the firsthand as you can get to the truth. And them dumb motherfuckers would post, he gonna post 4 books. 4 books from like the 2000s or something, maybe 1900s, late 1900s. Do you think these little coloring book ass motherfucking covers is gonna tell you the truth? Do you think it could possibly tell you the truth if it presents the actual real information? So I said to him, actually pull up the book. Don't just post the book covers and say, here's the books, that's the proof. Read the books and then report with the pages and passages that actually debunk any of the information. But no, that's not what they're doing. This would be a first-hand source. This is directly somebody's writings at the time. Now, I'm going to show you exactly how they say it gets translated. But the reason why they say you get the first-hand account is because typically when somebody is writing a letter, they're not lying. Typically, they're trying to get something from somebody, or there's something happening and they're trying to communicate that, or they need to order something from overseas. And so you might have a document where they ordered something or whatever the case may be. It ain't, some people will say, oh, how do you know that they were telling the truth? Spaniards were known to lie. Just shut up, okay? Now, again, this dude is in the Library of Congress, and he's calling out the lies between the Spanish and English translation. He said that the English wrote that when David Glavid went back to Europe, that something happened or whatever, but really he ended up somehow coming back and becoming a merchant and all of this. Now, this goes to show, watch this, the corruption and purposeful erasure. Now, when I had found this book long ago, not that long, maybe about like a year or two, or a year and a half ago or so, off of Sosolina's page, Sosolina's YouTube. I always shout him out. But when I found this on it, I remember just taking a screenshot and I was like, man, that Spanish book has a black Indian in it. Let me get close so y'all can see what the hell is really going on. So as you can see, he's holding a bow and arrow. He's got a jerry curl, okay? He's got abs, I guess. He's got a little cloth thing right here covering his body part. I'm saying that not because I'm on some Diddy shit. I want you to pay attention because watch. He's got a bow in his other hand, arrow up there, stepping on a book, stepping on a crown, etc. Whatever, right? Now this book was written in Spanish, Paleo Spanish, or just Spanish. I don't know if that's Paleo, but it's written in Spanish, right? And it's an old book published in 1703. That's not far from the goddamn 1500s. So that's telling me I'm at least closer to the truth than some nigga in the 1900s or 2000s, right? So then when you see this same book, what I did was copy the Spanish translation or the Spanish words here, and I paste them in Google. You can do the same. And I put the word archive after it. It took me a little bit, but I found a book very similar in the Cornell Library. But guess what was changed? Whole Indian picture has been changed. But you know what? They didn't even go that far to change too much. They just put a white face on a black body. Isn't that the same so-called chiseled body of the last guy? Notice they've actually swapped this out for something that looks a little bit more Greek for them instead of Indian. But he's holding a bow and arrow, which doesn't even make sense because they're trying to present this book as if this was the Indian, right? Stepping on that, El Scepter, whatever, same thing. Look at it again and again. Yes, they lie, just like he just said.
Sentenced to a life in the galleys. That's the English version of the narrative. The Spanish story is completely different.
That's the English version of the narrative. The Spanish version is completely different. And for those that say, oh, you found this, they didn't write and talk about black Indians. They drew the shit in 1703. Quit playing with me.